we're here at Audio Animals today with Paul Ashmore, who is an incredible mastering engineer and very popular, and he kind of likes his outboard gear a bit. So when the NGTubeEQ from WesAudio was announced, he naturally got straight on the phone and was quizzing me about it. So we've got one here today to show him, and I wanted to ask Paul really on camera, what was it that interested you about it?
The main interest for me is the recallability. Working with so many clients online, you do get recalls. It's obvious. We get a lot of recalls with mixing. Even with mastering, there's the odd recall. For mixing purposes, especially, it comes down to always having to do recalls. There's always going to be recalls with mixing, and that's where I can add the TubeEQ on the mix bus. Instantly have that recall. I can jump from session to session to session.
Of course.
And it's instant. That's the real appeal to me.
So it's that high-level mastering EQ,
Oh,
but
yeah,
with
yeah,
that
yeah.
instant recallability,
Yeah.
which...
I mean, when I first heard it was coming out, before it actually released, I was kind of thinking, you know, how good is this EQ going to be?
Yeah.
And when it did come out and I saw the price of it and I saw how good it was, I was very, very grateful that it was a proper high-end EQ. It's
Sure.
You know, it's as good as every other EQ. It's good as the Maslet, the Buzz, everything. So it's up there with those EQs, but with the added benefit of having this total recall with it.
Absolutely, and loads of extra features as well.
Yes.
And it's actually... So I've come off the back of making a video for this, and I'm not going to lie, I probably lost a couple of nights' sleep thinking about how I was going to make this video because it's incredibly in-depth, this product. It is at heart just your 4-band EQ, as you know, with your kind of high-pass filter and low-pass filters and everything, but it's some of the bells and whistles on this, I think.
To me, it's what it brings to the chain additional to everything else.
Sure.
I've got 8 EQs in here. I don't need another EQ, but I do need this EQ because I've got solo in bands. I've got that recall. The good thing about having recall is you use recall differently. You use the hardware, the EQ, differently to how you use an analog, fully analog EQ. When you've got recall with it, you tend to not have to think about, I've got to hit -1 because I might have to recall it.
Yeah, because you don't have to try and recall like nearly -1.
Whereas this, what are the steps on this? Something like 0.15?
So yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of modes on the gain steps, and you can change this if you're in dual mono or mid-side. You can change this per side as well, like this. So this side is now ±15 and this is ±5. So when you're in the ±5 mode, your steps are... 0.08 dB steps, pretty much. So
which is unheard of.
Every quarter of a dB, you got 3 steps.
Yeah.
And then I think it's still pretty good in the ±15 as well. It's like quarter of a dB steps. Yeah, quarter of a dB steps. So I mean that's more than almost any other.
As a mastering engineer, you're using +5, so you're getting 0.8 of a dB step.
0.08.
0.08 dB step.
I think it's 12 steps per dB.
Yeah, which is like, there's no other EQ that I've got that does anything like that. The only other place that you find that is in the box.
Sure, yeah,
So
where it's essentially infinite, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, they're the little things that you don't get with any other piece of equipment that I've got in here. So this is why it's made it straight into my chain, because it's something, it adds so much more than just another EQ, because there's plenty of EQs out there, there's plenty that I want, but this is one that actually gives me functionality, lots of different functions that I don't already have. Like I can get other EQs, but it's just another tone, it's another color, it's another sound, whereas this is extra functionality that I otherwise had to use in the box. Now I'm out the box doing it.
Of course, and you've not even touched on what this is named after, the tubes.
Yeah, blimey.
Amongst other things as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got that instant ability to switch from the clean electronically balanced output, so you're super clean, transparent, I just want to fix something without playing around with the audio too much, to dialing in the iron and the tubes.
That tube sounded incredible when we were doing it. There was, when we had it off, I was like, yeah, it's, you know, sounds like another EQ. It sounds, you know, sounds like a really nice clean EQ.
Sure.
You put it on and wow, that bottom end was just like
There's like a weight to it, isn't there? It's really cool. I think we likened it a bit to how the Burl
yeah,
converters were doing. You know, that
do you know
adding
what?
up
Do you know what
thickness.
the best way to explain it? When I first heard that, I felt it down in my belly. If you know what I mean.
I exactly know what you
Yeah.
mean. Yeah, it's hard to put into words, isn't it?
Yeah.
I spend my life trying to put this stuff into words, and it's very, very difficult. So yeah, obviously the thing to know as well as you're keeping this unit is that you can drive into the tubes and the transformer's harder by bringing this output up and then trim the output down again to keep the level sensible.
Another thing to mention is how generous the frequency range is in terms of crossover. That I was impressed about, because obviously when you're sweeping through, you know, when you look at 600 hertz there, you've got 600 on this one.
On the
You've
high
got
frequency band, yeah.
Yeah, you've got 550 on the high mid. Then you've got 620 on the low mid. If you're around that range, even though they're selectable frequencies, you're finding that frequency that you want, especially if you're using that the solo band, which that in particular, that's one thing that's, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, is it a world first?
I think so. For an analog piece of gear,
Yeah.
of course, yeah. Obviously, we know there are plugins that do it, and in fact, the plugin for this, you can do it through, you know, can control everything on this from the plugin. But yeah, I think for an analog piece of gear, to my knowledge, it's a world first. I do think there's another product coming that has that on. I wouldn't want to name it because I don't know if it definitely does. But yeah, that's a super useful thing for just being sure you're finding that issue, isn't it?
That is something that we've always, as mastering engineers, as mix engineers, we've always had to do that in the box. We've never been able to do it out the box. And the difference is when we're working in the box, we're working either before the mastering chain or after the mastering chain once we come back in. So now we're able to do it inside the mastering chain. You know, patch that in wherever you need it, and then you've got that ability to kind of isolate a certain band and really pinpoint that frequency, and then that double click on it as well. Like,
the ability to to enhance their potential where the issue is, pressing this and sweeping through the frequency range to find it, and then just double clicking that to invert and fix the problem.
Incredible. Yeah, that's the thing
It's a
with
workflow
that
thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's something where if a mastering engineer was to be designing something, they'd go, that's a feature that I want. And it's great that a company has either spoken with general users who are actually going to use this and say that's something we want, or they've thought it up themselves and gone, yeah, this will be a handy feature for people, because that is good.
Absolutely. Oh, they've clearly done the homework.
Definitely.
Yeah, and indeed, the ability for mix engineers to have just as dual mono, you can parameter link still even in the dual and still control it as a stereo unit if you really want to.
Is there anything it doesn't have?
I'm struggling to find things. I mean, there are really picky things if you really wanted to do it. Like, it's got the proportional EQ that you can switch on, but that does it for the whole EQ, not just for a specific band. Is that a drawback? No, really. I mean, no. How complicated do we want this to be? I mean, I think it's probably enough. And that's a nice feature, actually. I mean, I think there are mastering engineers who swear by proportional EQ, and others need that fixed reliability of the constant Q.
The thing is it's an option we've got. So, the only other option I've got for that is in the SPLPQ. So having that as another option, it's a great addition. The one other thing that's really good on all WesAudio gear is ABC.
Do you use that a lot, do you?
Yeah. And the reason I use it is I basically use set up my EQ, for instance. I would set up my EQ exactly how I want it. I'll then copy that to B. So just hold it down, copy it to B, and now in B we've got the same. Now what I can do is I can add some additional processing, let's say. So there's a few little additional processing. Was it better before? Is it better after? And I can work out which one. And then what's great, instant recall. If I had that one selected, it loads up with that one selected. So I haven't got to remember, I was on A.
Whatever you save the session on, it just loads up.
It's not like you've got to save, you haven't got to save the kind of presets onto the box. It's just loaded straight into your session. So when you open your session, bang, it's the next level.
Well, the NG in the name is next generation.
Well, yeah.
So, yeah, it literally is the next level.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, obviously touching on the mid-side side of things as well. I mean, having those three abilities in one EQ is not something you get in that many of them.
Yeah.
A really powerful mid-side encoder, again with the ability to switch between 5 and 15 dB steps, proportional EQ individually on each side.
Oh, that's cool.
So
Yeah.
those are, you know, completely
Well, that's good
individual
because
as well.
you at points you might want to use proportional EQ on the sides and not on the mid, or
Exactly,
vice
yeah.
versa.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's good.
and you know, having played with that, it does make quite a significant difference to the sound and the way the EQ works. Do you know what really hit home for me as well, though? The first thing I did out of the box, as you can imagine, is just your stereo EQ, which obviously you just control from the one side. This side just becomes completely redundant. So guaranteeing, you know, perfect matching on
That
both
in
sides.
itself is brilliant.
It's just clever, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's
it's
almost
just-
obvious when
yeah,
you think
yeah,
about
yeah.
it, but there are
Why do
some
we?
EQs.
We don't want to match.
Yeah, it's a minor inconvenience. I suppose there's a little accessibility bonus there as well.
Yeah.
But I think when I started playing with this, and I'm just going to reset these bands, you know, when I grab an EQ like this, the first thing I usually do as someone who sells all this gear is I want to know, how is this the high frequency band? Is it going to add, you know, is it really good for air? You know, things like the Marg
How hard
EQ4M,
can you push it through?
famous for
Yeah.
their air band, you know, and it does sound amazing, and a lot of people use that and swear by it. What does this one sound like? So let's go to 28 kilohertz, and let's go to town with it. Let's push 15, you know, and I was like, it sounds lovely. I'm adding 15 dB at the 28 kilohertz, and obviously
Is that 28?
it's 28 kilohertz at the
Blimey,
top. Yeah. So you know, obviously you can't hear that high, but the shelf bleeds down into very much the audible spectrum naturally. And I was like, it doesn't sound that much. It sounds really nice. So let's back up to 18. Hang on, 13, and I'm going all the way down to like 8,210 kilohertz, and it still sounds really good, even with 15 dB of boost. And obviously, it partly depends on the source material if it's not too bright to start with, but. It's such a smooth sounding EQ. It's always, for me, quite a good initial test to see, is it a brittle, is it really powerful, or is it more subtle?
Some EQs you do that on and you're like,
You take your face off, yeah.
as much as how it sounds and how good an EQ it is, it's how much it brings to the existing chain. That's one of the big things for me. You know, the NG bus comp's brilliant. I love that. I think it's a great little bus comp, that.
Yeah, and you were showing me on the mix earlier, and
the difference
how
it
much
makes.
smoothing it really brings
It's
to
a
that.
brilliant bus
Really,
comp.
really cool.
And this is just goes hand in hand with it. I mean, the two are like, like for a mix bus comp, and this is, it's special.
There's a lot in just those two boxes. Isn't
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
going
yeah.
on? So,
Plus you got the THD on it as well. On both units you got that.
Yeah, I think it's something that WesAudio pretty much put on everything. So at least wherever they are on the chain, you've got that option of adding that little bit of sort of distortion, saturation in as much as you want. You know, 1% at a time, according to this.
Blimey. Is it really?
I think if you go very, very slowly, you can dial in 1% at a time. There you go. Do we need that level of detail? Yes.
Yes. Yes, I'll tell you why we need that sort of level of detail, because we don't have that with other units.
Sure.
And this is where I say this is
Except plugins, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But this is where I say this unit is actually an exceptional product, because it gives you so much that you don't have out the box. This is all the stuff that we come familiar with in the box. You know, this is all the stuff that we usually have to do in the box.
Yeah.
Now it's out the box, in our mastering chain, hands-on. I'm looking forward to people hearing how good that tube is, because that actually astonished me when you turned that on. Because I thought it was going to be good, but I didn't realise it was going to be that good.
It sounds very right. And when you take a mix that already sounds good,
Yeah.
it
Well,
will
this is
always
what we
sound
did
better.
when you first brought it in. The first thing I did was loaded a mix up that's finished, signed off. Client's happy with it. Everyone's happy with it. It's about to go to mastering. Then we put that in, and we didn't put anything on. We didn't do any EQ change. We just put that tube on, the tube output.
Yeah.
And the difference it made was astonishing. Yeah. It was so impressive.
And in fact, I've already, that's one audio demo I did do in our NGTubeEQ video, was no EQ on, just showing what those do. Because I think that obviously is a big selling point, and the product's named after what that does, and rightly so. But as you say, with that benefit, all of the insane control, the workflow benefits that you get from being able to, you know, double tap to flick between them, press and hold to just reset to 0, a single press to turn each
Yeah.
individual band on and off, and you can just do this and bypass them all at once and things like that. Workflow is insane on it.
It's impressive. The fact that how well they've thought it out is what's really impressive, because I can't see anything that isn't covered.